Thank you very much. Thank you, Alexander, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Roberto Spaces Carduso. I'm CEO and co-founder of Scipopulis. And Scipopulis is a data analysis company. We, as Alexander was saying, we process data, buzz data in real time, other sources of data. And we built a platform that streamlines the process of cleaning up data, processing data, analyze data, and visualizing data. We have been doing that since 2014, and throughout those years, we have acquired a large experience processing particularly mobility data. So if you work with transport, as we do, you know very well that transportation is responsible for roughly 14% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and that is why many cities around the world have started to take measures to reduce the amount of emissions generated by transport. So France, for instance, they tried to raise gas prices, and the results they got were not exactly what they were expecting. And as Stuart was saying this morning, maybe it lacked persuasion. You know, maybe people weren't really aware of what was the reason behind that. And it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to reduce emissions from transport because it will require that we change our behavior, we change the way we do things, and to change the way our habits. So another area where it might be easier to start with is public transportation. And why? Because in public transportation, bus operators, they have contracts with the government, so it makes it easier for the government to add requirements and emission requirements to reduce carbon emissions. And also, sometimes contracts in public transportation are long, so you can add to the contract the financial balance you need to cover for the investment required to transition from regular buses and electrical buses, so that the operators, in the long run, they will have a return over their investment and make up for the costs. But even though it seems easier, electrification is a very complex issue. You maybe saw the presentation this morning from John from First Bus, and he was explaining a lot of issues that I also explained in my presentation. Operation of electrical buses is different from the operation of regular buses. There are some things that regular buses can do that electrical buses simply cannot do. There are other operational issues such as battery life. So nobody knows exactly how long those batteries last. And if you don't pay attention to the operation, you may need to change batteries more often and make more investments on batteries than expected, and that will compromise the financial equilibrium and financial balance of the contracts. There are some issues also, planning issues, when you start to electrify your public transport network. You may not know exactly which line to start with. So where do I start? Where will I have the largest impact on the environment? You may not know if you need a larger fleet to operate a line that you already have. So that may be the case with electrical buses. Because of these operational differences, you may have one line that you operate that you use 20 buses, and if you change them for electrical buses, you may need 25 buses. So you need even more investment to operate electrical buses. And also, you may need to identify bus lines in your city that are not suitable for electrification, because current technology has some issues regarding slopes and regarding distances, and you may have to replan or restructure your network to make it suitable for electrical buses. And we also have some issues that are more related to transparency and to governance of the process, and they are very related to these issues of persuasion that Stuart was mentioning earlier. So how do you measure the impact of the measures you're taking? How you make clear for the public the benefits of changing diesel buses for electrical buses? You also have to promote accountability. How do you make sure that this plan to zero emissions in public transportation is followed and the intermediary goals are being met, so that in 20 years, 10 years, the city can have clean public transportation. And you also want to improve transparency of the process. It's the process that requires large investments. We saw this morning that Scotland, for instance, is paying 75% of the difference between the prices of diesel buses and electrical buses. So there is, it may require a lot of public investment, and you may need to make that investment transparent so that people can control how the money is being spent. So in Scipopulis, we developed a tool called TransCity, and this is the tool I mentioned before, that we integrate different sources of data, we process data in real time, and we generate a lot of operational metrics that can help to solve the issues I mentioned earlier, the operational and planning issues, and even transparency issues. We compute things like average speed on every street that the buses are traveling in, how many buses are circulating every day on each part of the city, how many journeys are being made, and this kind of stuff, which is very important for planning transition to electrical mobility. We also have developed a model that estimates the amount of emissions generated by each bus running on the city. And we have that data in very granular resolution, so we know on each street of the city the amount of emissions generated by diesel buses. And it allows us to build maps such as this one that shows the areas of the city where public transport has a larger impact on emissions, and they help governments to plan the transition and to focus on some parts of the city to leverage the impact of introducing electrical buses. And we finally have also dashboards for the citizens so that they can follow the process of electrification. They can be aware of if the goals are being met, and if all the actors that are responsible for this process, they are performing their actions as required to have clean transportation in the 20 year horizon. So we are already running our platform in 8 cities. In those cities, we are monitoring 28,000 buses. We saw the presentation today from First Bus. They have a 5,000 bus fleet, so we monitor more or less 6 times what they have. It's almost 3 times the size of the bus fleets in London. These buses, they serve 16 million people on those cities, and we monitor 176,000 kilometers of streets, which is almost 10 times more than UK has of the station of the rails in the UK. So our team is mostly based on computer scientists, designers, and urbanists to combine the data, design the ways to visualize the data, and how to use the data to improve mobility in the cities. Here I cite some key team members. Our team today is of almost 12 people, but me and Marcio, we are co-founders, we are computer scientists. We are both PhD from Paris or from France. Igor is our head of product design. He has 7 years of experience building data visualization products, and Aurélie is our head of business development. She has a master's in Sciences Po in France, and she has 5 years of experience implementing bike sharing systems in Brazil and Latin America. So we can really help governments and transport agencies to speed up the process of introducing electrical buses. It's a pressing issue. It's important to make public transportation clean so that we can reduce emissions related to transport. It's a complex process. This data can help you make sure you are investing the money in the right place and make sure that the process is being performed as efficiently as possible. So let's do it together. Let's do it together. Let's not choose extinction. Let's have sustainable public transportation. Thank you very much.
Roberto, brilliant, and a great one to end on there.
Yeah.
So, kind of in terms of, I mean, I love slides with stats, so it's great. And you sort of bank sort of impacts with the technology, but what's the business model behind it?
Oh, okay, so yeah, we have a software as a service platform, so cities, they just pay as they use. They don't have to invest in infrastructure, in other computing structure. We have our products running on the cloud, and we can integrate with their data, and it's a turnkey solution. In 2 days, they have their data coming out of the platform. So.
And so in terms of kind of that, oh, sorry, Bradford, yeah.
Yeah, you're allowed to ask questions.
Hey, Bradford from the routing company. I also love buses. So quick question. One is, what's the primary data sources that you're using? And second, what other applications do you have for this? It seems like you have a great deal of data and you could use it for more than just electrification.
Okay, yeah, so mainly we use GPS data from the buses. So most of the buses that are running around our cities, they have GPS and they provide data every 40 seconds or of about where they are. And we correlate those data with the network infrastructure, so we know where the bus stops are and in which streets the buses are passing. So we do that to compute average speed of buses throughout the city. We also use in some cities passenger data, and then we can generate a lot of statistics relating the quality of the service and the emissions generated by the service with the amount of people being served. We also integrate data from flooding areas to help cities identify which lines may be subject to flooding during heavy rains. We integrate data from light signals also, so that they can relate traffic with the performance of light signals and change the times of the light signals. So as it depends a lot on what are the issues the city is facing and what data they have, and how can we integrate those data to answer the questions they have. So that's one thing. And about the second question, the uses of the tool, cities use it also to monitor the operation. So the operation centers of the cities, they have the tool running so that they can visualize when there is an accident or if there is a disruption, the impact it is causing and which areas of the city are being affected. We also provide data for some apps. There are some transport apps in Brazil that plug their apps into our data to provide citizens with time to arrive, the estimated time of arrival of buses, or also how long will it take to complete a journey. This kind of real-time data they need to operate and to provide real-time information for their users. They get from our platform. So yeah, that's more or less the uses they have, and for planning also, because we store that data and we have historical data, so they can compare scenarios. They can compare what's happening now to what happened a month ago, what happened during the beginning of COVID, what was the impact. So we have all that stored and easy to access. So the planning teams also use that data to improve their planning process.
Rohit, yes.
Hi, Rohit here from Mash Makes. I just wanted to ask you whether you've considered like having an offset price for because you track CO2 emissions like reduced in real time, right? Like,
yes.
Can you, so as a win-win for both the government who's contracting you and perhaps even for yourself, like to charge slightly more for the amount of carbon dioxide that's offsetted by a passenger's trip, or like have you thought of those? Like,
okay, so are you talking more about the amount of emissions per passenger and to have data about that, or are you talking about simulating and estimating future scenarios where you change something and you want to know what's the impact that will cause?
So both, a combination of both, which will help sort of have an added source of revenue.
Okay.
Because you are making a change, you're tracking it, like you're tracking real-time data.
Yes.
Yeah. So like why not like monetize it if people are willing to pay more for electric buses?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. We do some emissions per passenger, this kind of stuff. We don't go into the financial components of that yet, but we also do what I mentioned, the simulation thing. So if the government is planning to create a bus lane and it will require some investments, we can simulate the positive impact, how much it will reduce emissions to be part of the argument for funding. So if we invest in this, we will reduce time of the trips by a number. It will benefit a number of citizens that will, save 15 minutes in their journeys, and we will also reduce the carbon emissions by a factor of I don't know how many. So that makes all the case for introducing, measures to increase fluidity of public transportation. Okay.
Brilliant, Rohit. Thank you, Roberto. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.